They did a chart and they said, which candidate is most likely to take us to war, to intervene in the Middle East again, and which is least likely? Most likely, actually, may or may not surprise you, was Hillary Clinton. Rubio was up there. And actually, I was seen as the least likely, and particularly the least likely, to take our country to war without having Congress vote on it. Our founding fathers intended on it being difficult to go to war. They gave the power exclusively to Congress. In fact, Madison said that the executive branch is the branch most prone to war, therefore we vested the power to declare war in the people's house, in Congress. We've been ignoring that. And what we have right now is a president who so thoroughly is ignoring the Constitution, he's just doing whatever he wants. He says he's got a pen, he's got a phone, and he's just going to do what he wants. So people say, what's the worst thing that President Obama's done? Is it Obamacare, or is it the banking regulations, or this and that? No, the worst things he's done is trash the Constitution. The worst thing he is doing is trashing the concept of the separation of powers. See, it was genius that our founding fathers brought forward a document that had checks and balances.
Yes, sir.
Congress was supposed to be co-equal to the presidency. They were supposed to check and balance each other. Madison said that we would pit ambition against ambition. The ambition of Congress, men and women, to try to get more power would be pitted against the president, who might want more power, but they would check and balance each other. The problem in our country, though, and it didn't just start with this president, but the problem in our country is so much power has gravitated to the presidency. All day the media have been asking me, they've been saying, what about, you said you're going to oppose tooth and nail the president's new gun control. And I will. But they say, well, what is it that's so wrong about the gun control? And I say, that's actually of secondary importance. Of primary importance is that even if I agreed with what the president was doing, it's unconstitutional for the president to write law. I'll do whatever I can to stop him, and I hope he'll stand with me on that. The way you stop the president, if you're in Congress, is you don't fund what he asks for, or you don't fund what he demands. You don't fund his executive orders. But here's the rub. We just voted on $1.1 trillion spending bill, all of the spending glommed together, stuck together in one bill. We have almost no power left. We gave it all up. The power of the purse is incredibly important, but it doesn't exist once you give it to the president. So when we voted for a year's worth of spending in December, not me, when Congress voted for 1 year's spending, he's got it to the end of his term. We gave him everything he wanted. So we gave him the ability to write an executive order to enforce gun control that never would have passed Congress. Now people say, well, defund it if you don't like it. It would take all 54 Republicans in the Senate and 6 Democrats. Anybody think we're going to get 6 Democrats on this? Probably won't get 1 anymore. So even if we did, let's say we get all 54 Republicans and 6 Democrats say to the president, you can't write the law, we do. You know who has to sign the law? The president. So it's very difficult to stop him. But let me paint a different scenario for you. What if we let the spending expire? December 11th, the spending would have expired. What if we said to the president, you know what? We're going to start the parts of government we agree with. Defending the country, roads, schools. There's a bunch of things we could agree to. There's a lot of things we do in government we shouldn't be doing. And we're not going to fund those. Or what if we did it for 2 months? Then we'd have a 2-month period of time, we'd come back up and we'd be able to challenge this executive order. There's almost no ability to stop him. I have legislation in to stop him, but it's going to be difficult because it's going to require Democrats and it will require his signature. Whose fault is it though? Who passed this horrendous spending bill in December? Who raised the debt ceiling? Is it just the Democrats? Is it the Republicans? It's both parties. And this is the real thing that the media hasn't told you and won't tell you. What's the story you hear every night on the news? Oh, we don't get along, there's gridlock, nobody will compromise. It's exactly untrue. Everybody actually gets along swimmingly well in Washington. The right says we want more money for the military. The left says we want money for the welfare and for domestic spending. How do they each get what they want? They have to give each other what they want. You get stuck with the bill. So you think you elect Republicans and you think the deficit's going to go down. And you think we'll balance the budget. But when we had 8 years of Republicans, the debt went from 5 trillion to 10 trillion. In fact, I ran for office and became part of the Tea Party movement that came about in about 2009 because I was upset with Republicans who voted to bail out the banks and were increasing the debt, increasing the Department of Education, and increasing the size of the federal government. I said, that's not the party I belong to. So I ran for office to oppose that. Now we've got a Democrat president. It's gone from 10 trillion to 20 trillion. We borrow money at $1 million a minute. In 2011, when I first got elected, they were going to raise the debt ceiling, and the new Tea Party people said, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to negotiate with the president. We're going to make him listen to us. And out of that came the sequester. Now, a lot of people don't know what the sequester is, but it was budget caps. It was limitations on spending. But it wasn't any cuts to spending. It was cuts to the rate of increase in spending, but it was still better than increasing spending as fast as we were. And yet, who was the biggest and who has been the biggest and loudest voice in Washington for getting rid of the spending caps? The right. They've said, oh, we have to have more money for military. And here's the thing is, look, Kelly's dad was 20 years in the Air Force. My dad was 5 years in the Air Force. We've got a nephew who's career Navy. We've got 2 nephews who just enlisted in the Navy. We've got probably 15 members of our family who've been in the military. We believe in a strong national defense. But you cannot be stronger if you're bankrupt. Rubio wants to borrow $1 trillion to add to the defense. Well, if you borrow from China to put in our defense, are we stronger? I think the number one threat to our national security is actually our debt. You can't get stronger as we go further into debt. Right now we spend about $600 billion on our military. That's more than Russia, plus China, plus 8 more countries. So we have to ask ourselves, what is enough? You know, and how are we going to survive if we go further into debt? We can't project power from bankruptcy court. How do we have a strong national defense? How do we have peace through strength like Reagan talked about? Well, you got to have a strong economy. You know, we've got one candidate saying, make America great. We got to know how America became great. If you want to make America great again. We became great because we were the first country in really perhaps the history of man that said, we want government really, really small. We want government that keeps the peace, defends the country. But we don't want a government involved in all of our affairs. And we left so much freedom and so much wealth to the people that we created the richest, freest, most humanitarian nation on earth. Do you know in 2014 we gave away privately $400 billion in charity? That didn't happen in Cuba. They don't have great wealth or abundance under socialism. We have to understand that our economic system created this wealth. How are we going to keep it? Right now we're losing American jobs and businesses overseas. Why? Because companies and money are going to go where they're welcome. We have the highest business tax in the world, 35% income tax for businesses. You know what it is in Canada? 15%. Burger King reincorporated in Canada last year. Pfizer, a billion-dollar great American company, is merging with a company in Ireland because the tax rate in Ireland is 12%. Now the answer from Democrats and the answer from President Obama is, well, let's just make a law and tell them they can't go. Well, they're going to go either way, or you'll put them out of business. Why don't we just make them welcome here? Why don't we make the taxes low here, so not only would our companies want to stay, people would want to move here, like they always have, to be part of the greatest economy on earth. We have a problem that we really are facing, and the number one threat to our national security is our debt. And it's important that we know that it's coming from right and left. We have to think about our foreign policy as well. And this is why the last presidential debate, I think, was a very good debate. We finally talked about whether regime change is a good idea or a bad idea. Is it a good idea to say that it's our policy that we're going to get rid of Assad in Syria? Is it a good idea to say, well, we're going to bring freedom and democracy to Syria? We're going to, topple Assad, and then I guess they're going to elect Thomas Jefferson over there. Maybe not. Here's the problem. I think if Assad goes, if we bomb Assad, or we carpet bomb them, or make the sand glow, or whatever we do over there, and Assad goes, who do you think takes over Syria? Probably ISIS. In fact, I've been making the argument for 2 years that we should not be arming the allies of ISIS. It's ridiculous. ISIS rides around in $1 billion of U.S. Humvees. They have 43 of our tanks. They have $1 billion of U.S. cash. They pay their soldiers. How insulting is it? They pay their soldiers with our money. They have our anti-tank weapons. And I told people, I fought against this in my committee, and I lost. I said, I don't want to send arms to the allies. Back then, they weren't called ISIS. We just knew they were allied with radical Islam or with Al-Qaeda. I said, I thought that's who we were fighting. You're telling me I have to give money and arms to the allies of Al-Qaeda, and somehow that's better than having Assad there? Sometimes there's variations of evil on both sides of a civil war. And that's what the problem is in the Middle East. But if there's one thing we ought to learn from history, is that when we've toppled secular dictators in the Middle East, we've gotten chaos, the rise of radical Islam, and we've been less safe. With Gaddafi gone in Libya, and that was supported by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Rubio, McCain, Graham, and the rest of them. They all think that we're going to spread democracy and freedom around the world, but what we end up spreading is chaos and bankrupting our country in the process. Libya is a failed state. They killed our ambassador. The jihadists swim in our embassy swimming pool in Tripoli, and 1/3 of Libya now pledges allegiance to ISIS. Tell me that we're better off with Gaddafi gone than there. But we keep making these mistakes. And so right now there are people in both parties saying we need a no-fly zone. Hillary Clinton's for it, Rubio's for it, Bush is for it. Governor of New Jersey standing next to me on the stage, he's for it. I brought it up because I thought they would realize that if you're for a no-fly zone and Russia's already flying there, you're going to be setting yourself up with a confrontation with Russia. And I thought for sure they'd back down and realize the folly of purposefully having an altercation with Russia. And then in the last debate, Christie pipes up and says, absolutely, I'm your candidate, and I'm the guy that will shoot down Russia's planes. It's like, really? So we do have to think through this. Is important. There's a lot of young people here, there's a lot of young men here who will be sent off to fight the next war. We need to think through what we really want in a commander-in-chief. Donald Trump was asked about the nuclear triad. The nuclear triad is that we have 3 ways we can deliver nuclear weapons: land-based missiles, sea-based missiles, or air-based missiles. It's not complicated. He had no idea what it was. And he was asked a month before by the same interviewer what it was, and he had no idea what it was. But what's even more worrisome than him not knowing what it is that a week after the debate, his spokesman came out and said, well, the biggest problem we have is we have not been willing enough to use our nuclear weapons. Can you imagine someone being treated seriously as a candidate for the President of the United States who thinks that our main problem of our defense is we haven't been willing enough to use our nuclear arsenal? See, that should be laughed out of the debate. If your 3rd grader told you that, you would expect by the time they got to 4th grade, they would understand the danger of using your nuclear weapon. But that's where we are, and it is a scary time to think that Iowa or any other state could nominate Donald Trump. So when you think through whether it's worth it to help me or even to help another candidate other than Donald Trump, think through what you might have. Think through what you might also have if someone like that is the nominee of the Republican Party, whether or not we get washed out in a landslide. We need somebody who is serious, someone who has judgments, who has wisdom, but someone who's fiscally conservative enough to know that we have to watch spending on the military side, watch spending on the domestic side, and we need to get back to simple principles, our constitutional founding principles. We have to defend economic liberty, personal liberty, the Bill of Rights for everyone. I think I offer something unique to the race. I think we've got a great chance of winning in Iowa. We have the best team on the field of anybody. We're going to have a big announcement tonight that I believe will let everyone in Iowa know that our organization is bigger, better, and more organized than any candidacy. And we're going to be announcing that tonight. I have another birthday party tonight. I appreciate you all coming out here. I appreciate your support. I hope you're motivated by the message, and I hope you will go out and get us enough votes to win the caucus. Thank you very much for being here.